All right, welcome everyone. Before we start, I cover a few basics here. So for now, please keep yourself muted. Don't hesitate to put a question or a comment in the chat at any time during this meeting today. And be comfortable, grab a tea or a coffee or some water. If it's 100 degrees where you are, maybe some water is a good idea. The point is to get comfortable, have video on or off, whatever works for you. This is supposed to be a comfortable space for us to learn from and connect with one another. So we don't need a ton of pretense, but we can keep our professionalism, but just still get along with one another. So my name is Matt Elmore. I'm the Grant Programs Coordinator at Mid-America Arts Alliance, which means that I'm the day-to-day manager of the grant program. I prefer he, him pronouns. And to talk a little bit about myself, I have a background in music. I have a PhD in music theory and composition from the University of Pittsburgh. And after my time there, I've joined into the nonprofit sector and have worked in both direct service and grant administration roles for about the last decade or so. But the most important thing to know about me, I think, is that you can always reach out to me if you have a question about the grant program, and I'll always be happy to either answer that question for you or find somebody who can. So always available at creativeforces@ma.org, or you can reach me at matt@ma.org. I check both religiously. So getting into today, welcome to our all hands meeting. Our goals for today are threefold and very low key. One is to understand the purpose of these all hands meetings that we're at right now. Another is to get to know many of the members of the Creative Forces teams that you'll be interacting with over the next year. And thirdly, to learn a little bit about the resources and infrastructure that Creative Forces has built over the last 10 years, and also intensively during the grant program's development over the last few years, just to be here and support your work. So that's why we're here today. And to kick things off, I'm going to just start out with, well, what is the purpose of the all hands meetings? And forgive me for reading from a bit of a script, but I just want to make sure I get the points across. The all hands meetings are a place for Creative Forces grantees to network and have open discussions about topics important to your work in providing community arts engagement to military connected populations. So I encourage you to use these meetings as an added resource for connecting, sharing, and learning from each other. This is a place to learn that you are not alone in the work that you're doing, and that there's so much room for collaboration and learning just by talking to your peers in the field here. So that's the number one reason we're here, is to learn and support one another in this work that we're doing. These meetings are here to support the people working on your grant projects. And by being a part of this national network of people doing arts engagements with military connected communities. So in future all hands meetings, feel free to invite anyone working on your grant project to these meetings, including staff, volunteers, contractors, and folks from partner organizations. They're welcome to participate if you think that these meetings would be beneficial to them. We also have a number of subject matter experts who will be participating in our group discussions here at these all hand meetings. Many of whom work under the Creative Forces umbrella and are here today to introduce themselves and their teams. On occasion, we will invite special guests to lead discussions as well. And so what are we going to talk about at these all hands meetings is a logical next question to go into. So based on the feedback that we've received from our group, including previous grantees and other community engagement professionals, our discussions will revolve around a handful of general topics that include military cultural competency, data collection and evaluation, communications and public relations, and the relationship between community arts and clinical art therapy. That being said, if you ever have a topic or question that you'd like to discuss with the people who do work similar to yours, you're welcome to bring them to these meetings. But if you don't want to wait till the next meeting to bring up a topic for discussion, you can also join our All Hands community channel on Slack, and I'll be posting the invitation. There was an invitation to the Slack channel in the invitation to this meeting. I'll be posting it in the chat very soon. And then I'll be following up afterwards with a link to that Slack channel. But feel free to join that Slack channel, post questions that you have about the work you're doing, successes that you're doing, anything that you want to do to connect and learn from other people who are doing similar work to what you are doing. Our discussions here at the virtual all hands meetings also guide us towards our annual in-person all hands convening that we be held at the NEA offices in Washington, D.C. on January 24th through 26th in 2024. In the next few months, I'll be providing you with information and on the additional MAH-funded support for travel and accommodations to that convening for representatives from your grant projects to attend. But I'll say that about that convening, that the connections that people made at last year's convening really resulted in some pretty fantastic collaborations. So I couldn't be more excited to meet you all in person in January, and super excited to share those details with you when they're available in the coming months. As a learner in this field myself, I'm personally excited and curious about the discussions that are to be had and the connections to be made in this national network. And as we welcome 34 new grant projects to Creative Forces, congratulations and thank you to all of you. You make a difference in your community. And now it's time to connect with others who do the same. So, okay, that's the idea of what these all hands meetings are for. And next, I'd like to get into introducing the teams and the work of the teams that are all over the place here on Creative Forces. But a great place to start is with the NEA themselves. And I'd like to pass the microphone over to Bill O'Brien to introduce himself, as well as Carolyn Bartley to introduce herself and talk about their work and the history of Creative Forces. Bill, can I hand it over to you?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Hi, everybody. I am Bill O'Brien. I'm the Director of Creative Forces and the Senior Advisor for Innovation at the National Endowment for the Arts. First, I just want to echo a couple things that Matt just said, especially for the new folks joining us. We have on the call, as some of you probably already know, or maybe all of you do, but our grant projects can be 1 year or 2 years. So our collective grantee pool right now is made up of some new folks joining us today and some carryover projects from last year. So there's some known faces here and some new faces. But I especially want to underscore the congratulations. These projects, last year's round and this year's, they're my two favorite days. I don't think this is hyperbole to say that two of my favorite days, let's say, at the National Endowment for the Arts is reading the list of projects that are recommended for funding after they've gone through our panels. The work that you guys are all doing is so inspirational and above and beyond what we had hoped to see in response to the call for action in this area to support military populations through the arts. It's an enormously competitive pool, too competitive. There were many more projects that were worthy of funding than could be funded. And so I'm privileged to be on the call here with the best of those. So congratulations, and I'm really looking forward to continuing to stay informed and in touch with what you guys are carrying out. I also just want to stress something Matt mentioned, that a key thing that we want to be doing here, and we want to be doing as best we can. While today today's a lot of introductions and you're going to be listening in listening mode. But we've definitely, I think, identified a key value is for you folks to get to know each other and the work that you're doing, and kind of to create connective tissue, which is a term we talk about on the clinical side of things. So that you are feeling in connection with and informed by and informing what's at the heart of what we're trying to do, what is the value that it's bringing to the intended beneficiaries, the military families, caregivers that we're hoping to support. And then the other thing that's unique about this, and I stress this every time I have an opportunity to, I've been at the National Endowment for the Arts since 2006. I was first the director of theater and musical theater, and then I was the deputy chairman for grants and awards. then the Senior Advisor for Innovation, and then Creative Forces sort of came out of the innovation efforts. This really began in 2009 as an effort to understand the role the arts could play across art and science and health. We found a really interesting opportunity in 2011 to begin partnership with a DoD partner that's located at Walter Reed, and it was the National Intrepid Center for Excellence. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's basically a DoD advanced laboratory for healing education and learning related to how we can be responding to issues related to traumatic brain injuries and associated psychological health issues, including PTSD. Now, if you can think back to 2009, we were in the middle of a war, a couple of wars, and we had no idea how long we were going to be in those. And there was a really vexing health issue for the military associated with PTSD. And when we got to know the folks at the NICO, we were really intrigued by their approach. They were basically rolling up their sleeves to understand how they could be improving their response to what was becoming known as the signature wounds of these wars, the invisible wounds of war. And it was a really interesting series of conversations related to their interest in not only leveraging forward the kind of traditional ways of addressing these types of issues, but also dipping into more alternative or complementary approaches. Those approaches are now complementary and integrative. Alternative has sort of dropped off. But they were supremely interested in the role the arts could play in the meaning making and the sense making and the spiritual injuries and the moral injuries and the sort of complicated issues that were being dealt with that couldn't necessarily always be unpacked and understood in the traditional ways. And the arts really brought forward a way to think about in a safe environment, unpacking issues related to trauma, et cetera. And it was a very successful partnership for our agency and for the DoD, and our congressional supporters were very enthralled as well, and encouraged us to continue thinking about how we could bring these types of advances to broader populations. And so we thought about that and did some program evaluation, and then we funded basically some pilot projects we called the Community Connection projects. We funded projects that were around what became a dozen clinical partners across the DoD and the VA to start trying to understand how community-based arts programming could support similar aims, which is basically supporting health and well-being advances for not just active duty or veterans, but also their families and caregivers who've been exposed to trauma. So we kind of opened the aperture. It wasn't just PTSD, it was, but still highly focused on health and well-being, which is kind of a new area for the agency, and one that it is, I think, beefing up its intention and its investment. We're looking for ways to translate not just into community settings for military, but also how these approaches could serve other populations that have specific issues related to trauma. Disaster relief, for example, is one we're looking at. First responders may be another one. But at the moment, you guys are helping us really sharpen the tip of the spear of these investigations to understand what value do we bring in arts and health related issues for military populations. So that's why you'll see in the, I know you read the guidelines and that you digested them very well because you won funding. But we have 4 focus areas on participant outcomes that we're going to take a multi-year approach and pulling back some data and understanding whether our assumptions were true and related to improved social connection and improved ability to transition successfully to civilian life. Building resilience, and by resilience we mean being able to snap back from challenging life events, and then creative expression. And the first 3 I named, we're using validated scales or validated surveys. They've been proven or tested before we touch them. The creative expression survey is one that we basically invented, or that we created based on what we were perceiving on the ground, both in through our community partners and our clinical partners. And when we talk about creative expression, we're really looking for ways to think about how these platforms that you're helping to create can engage people to understand themselves better and to feel seen and understood better by others, and to see others and understand them better as well, and to help sort of bridge a more effective social connection across military and civilian populations. So that's sort of what our aims were. We're going to have a lot of opportunity in these all hands to discuss things that seem to be relevant in these areas that you guys feel that, you know, we may want to unpack with each other. I am a firm believer that these conversations, especially after today's introductory, really need to be back and forth. We're as interested in hearing from you guys as we are in lecturing something for your consumption. Because we really are sort of wandering into a new set of aspirations, really, for the agency. We've been doing this for about a little over a decade here at Creative Forces, but it's still, this idea of arts and health and well-being is still kind of a fresh area of focus for the agency. And we really want to be supporting the work that you're doing so that we can understand how to provide opportunities for others to do similar things, how we can invest in it wisely ourselves, and how people carrying out things on the ground can understand best practices as best as they can. So we're still pretty new in this, but we are also very confident that what we've seen so far is that what you guys deliver on the ground is really important, and we want to understand better why it's so important and what's being gained and what value is being brought for these military populations. So I'll just leave it at that. I'll turn it over now and pass the mic over to my colleague at the NEA, Carolyn Bartley. She's not on my screen right now, but I think she's on the other page. Carolyn?
Yeah, thank you, Bill. I'm Carolyn Bartley. I'm the program manager for Creative Forces. Quick background on myself is I spent 15 years active duty Air Force, and then transitioned over to the Air National Guard. So still currently a member of the Air National Guard, but I left active duty to really pursue a career in arts health in the military, and feel very blessed to work on Creative Forces and to work with such amazing people. And so this is really a labor of love for me, as I know it is for many of you guys. I have a quick slideshow. I am the logistics, admin kind of side of things. So, and my sole job is Creative Forces. And so I'm going to give a quick slideshow from the more of the logistics side of things to kind of help visualize where you guys all sit in the Creative Forces picture. Which the slideshow came up very quickly when I tested it beforehand, and
That did the trick, Carolyn.
okay, perfect. Let me just put it in. Is it in slideshow view now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is our standard Creative Forces initiative, the National Endowment for the Arts, in partnership with the U.S. Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs, that seeks to improve the health, well-being, and quality of life for military service members and veteran populations exposed to trauma, as well as their families and caregivers. There are three primary components of Creative Forces. So you'll hear us talk about the three pillars: clinical, community, and capacity. So it started off with the clinical side, and Rebecca's here to talk about that. So I won't go too deep into that, but they really focus on the clinical care, have a cadre of creative arts therapies, but also work to inform and support non-clinical arts engagement activities, have made huge headway in telehealth services. And then another huge component of the clinical team is research into evaluation to really understand the impact of creative art therapies, and that they work with this the gold standard of science, and have a lot of peer-reviewed journals that they put out there. And then they also support arts and health. The second pillar is community, which is where you guys all fit in. And so community primarily is focused on the community arts engagement, the community arts engagement grants. So congratulations, you guys are the primary component of that. And then along with that, we also do our own research and evaluation on the community side that complements and supports what's going on the clinical, because it really is a continuum. It's clinical and community continuum because they feed both ways. And then supporting both of those pillars is capacity. And the primary component of that is the National Resource Center, as well as the research and evaluation that both the community and clinical doing. And so National Resource Center and tools and resources and network building. And we're looking to say, how can we support not only the capacity of our grantees and the capacity of our creative forces, creative art therapies, but the field as a whole. So quick, this is the order, so you guys can understand how we all kind of fit together. So just spoke is the project director for the National Endowment for the Arts. I am the program manager. And as I said before, Creative Forces is what I was hired to do. So this is my sole mission. So never hesitate to reach out. And then we have 3 cooperators. So Creative Forces is executed through 3 different cooperative agreements. We have the Henry Jackson Foundation, which is the foundation for Henry M. Jackson does the clinical component. Mid-America Arts Alliance, who you all contracted with, is there the lead in the community engagement side. And then Civic Arts is the 3rd cooperator, and they're in charge of the National Resource Center and other capacity building components. And you'll hear more from them today. And then just Bill already touched a lot on this, so I won't really dive into this slide, but just want to give you guys understanding that we've been working on the community side really since 2017. And so where we're at today with the grant program has been intentional along the way. We're always we're always constantly trying to learn and trying to build and adapt and react to different things. So it started with the summits with each of the Creative Forces sites. And then Bill talked about the CCPs or the pilot projects, which then led into the grant program where we're at today. Along the way, here's some of the things that have outcome, and pretty much everything that we've talked about today is, for the most part, except for the data collection plan, on the National Resource Center. So we've done lit reviews and needs assessments and what we learned from the summits and the pilot projects to really understand the needs of the populations that we're all here to serve. We worked through doing an evaluation of the community connection projects, along with pulling together a working group of both Creative Forces and non-Creative Forces personnel. We've defined a logic model and a measurement framework. The logic models can be found on the NRC. We define the outcomes for both the grantee level outcomes and the participant level outcomes. And then where you guys really come involved is this data collection plan. So all that resolves in a data collection plan, which has 4 primary components. The supplemental application form and the modified final descriptive report are really focused on the grantee level outcomes. And you have all filled out the first one, supplemental application form, and then at the end of your grant period, you'll fill out that modified descriptive report. We're really looking for that to learn about how you guys are building capacity, the type of programs that you guys are serving, and who's being served by the programs. And then the program and event feedback surveys came out of one of the findings from the evaluation on the community connection projects, that a lot of organizations struggled with doing surveys and evaluation and feedback. And so those surveys are designed for you guys to use to get participant engagement and satisfaction. And then we had the participant outcome survey that just went pilot testing. And Bill talked about those outcomes earlier, but ultimately in 2024 and 2025, the NEA will be doing a comprehensive evaluation to include use of those participant outcome surveys to really try to understand if what we're doing is hitting those outcomes. So my takeaways for you guys is we're a learning endeavor, whether it's good or bad, right? We've tried stuff and it has failed, and that is okay. And we try to learn from it. And we talk a lot of times that Creative Forces is really building the plane as we're flying it. So we're constantly learning new things. We really value your participation and feedback. When we put together this grant program, we made our best educated decisions, but we're not perfect. And so then things change. So please give us your feedback. What are we doing well? What aren't we doing well? What could be better? And we can take that into consideration, because ultimately we're all here to help you. We're all trying to meet the same goal. And so how can we all work together to achieve that? So we're out here supporting, and a huge thank you to everything that you guys do. I know it's a labor of love for many of you out there. So thank you for supporting the military community and Creative Forces. And I'll stop sharing and apologize for talking so fast, and thank you for bearing with me.
And I'll take a breath and try and slow down a little bit too, because that was wonderful. Thank you, Bill and Carolyn. Great information, and it's really helpful to know that history of creative forces and know where we all sit within this larger network of the work that everyone is doing. Next, you had mentioned the clinical team, and so I'd like to pivot over to Rebecca Vaudreuil and Hannah Jacobson Blumenfeld, who work on the clinical team, to introduce themselves, the work that their team does, and the sort of conversations that they're interested in having with you over the next year. Rebecca, Hannah, over to you.
Thanks, Matt. I think I'll kick it off, Hannah. Okay, cool. Well, so great to see you all. Very excited to be here. Matt, I don't know if you saw my email, if there was a way to share the quick version. Wanted to just check in with everyone. So there's a lot of information coming at you today, and something that we often do as cats is we really love us some good cat memes and other things. So just want to check in, and how are you doing today? You can put your response in the chat if you'd like, of which number best reflects you. But as creative arts therapists or cats, also cool cats, we like to kind of just check in with each other. And as you put in the chat, I'll just start chatting a little bit, cat chatting. So as Bill and Carolyn really aptly talked about the partnership and looking at how these amazing entities of the NEA and the Departments of Defense and Veterans Affairs really work together, and that overall aim to seeking to improve the health and well-being and quality of life for military and veteran populations, and those are including families and caregivers. And a way that on Carolyn's slide, I think it was 4 or 5 with the pillars, the clinical pillar is we do this by operating at 12 sites, both across the DoD and VA, and we support creative arts therapies as really a core part of the care, a standard of care in these interdisciplinary teams. Thanks for everyone for putting in your status there. Really operating as a standard of care alongside interdisciplinary teams. And we're working with different clinicians from all different disciplines. And we're doing this, as Carolyn really finally put, as a learning endeavor. So we are always looking to look at the value and the impact of the arts. And this includes each part of the clinic to community continuum. So from the clinic into the community and like everywhere in between, as people kind of go through this trajectory. And as Hannah will probably talk about, this can be very bi-directional and multi-directional. But that's, the cats doing music therapy, art therapy, dance movement therapy, these different disciplines really to incorporate overall health and well-being for the patient's rehabilitation. We know that it's never a desire to have a patient be a patient forever. Part of that core is rehabilitation, and that is to, reintegration, really be able to go and move toward that wellness. And so we absolutely need and love the community because it really provides that consistency and that continuity of maybe what they might first experience in a clinical setting, but doesn't stop there. And that's really the importance of why we just really appreciate the community part of this. And it continues to be a focus, community engagement of our strategic planning on the clinical side. It's an integral component of what we do. And finding ways that we can, serve as a resource to community partners and vice versa, on our end, helping really connect individuals going through treatment who we work with who are ready really for that next step to really go in and engage in the community. This could actually be during their treatment that we, continues on after treatment. So really, we have specific teams lined up on the clinical side that are really focused on understanding what we can do for resourcing around the clinic to community continuum. We really define ourselves and each other not by what we don't do, right? It's by what we do, what we're able to do. And we all bring such a rich part of this for both the clinical and the community sides. And so we want to know what you're doing. We have dedicated personnel, which I'll pass it over very soon to Hannah. And we really want to hear from you and have these conversations. How can we serve as a resource and vice versa to the community, really for that, looking at the overall improvement and support for military personnel who are going through treatment and beyond. as well as their kind of whole environment there. So I'll pass it over to one of our dedicated personnel who liaises between the clinical and the community. Hannah, you want to take it?
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah. I'm really excited to see some faces I recognize and some folks who are new today. And I'm especially thrilled to be here because I do sit right in the midst of a lot of nuanced conversations about clinic to community. And part of that is that my own background is in community arts administration. That's what I did for more than 12 years. And for the past 4 years, I've worked with Creative Forces on the community side, actually with the Community Connections projects and demonstration projects that Carolyn mentioned. And I've recently shifted over to the clinical team, which puts me in a really, really interesting position to have some of these conversations. Part of what I'm here to do is to help us all better translate what we do to each other and with each other, and better communicate, better make these pathways, because we know that these pathways are not one way. As Rebecca said, it matters what everyone is doing, and everyone is contributing really importantly to this work and to the participants' well-being. And so I am here to know what you are doing. I will be on all of your all hands meetings as much as possible. And please reach out or reach out to Matt and let's get connected, because it's really important that the creative arts therapists know what you're doing. And in many ways, I'm the link to that. And so I am really excited to hear about your work. I'm excited to be a resource to you as well. If you have questions about connecting with clinical folks, that's part of what our learnings are going to be this year as well. If you have experience with that and want to share, I want to hear about it. So I will go ahead and put my email in the chat. I'm really accessible and excited for you all. And thank you for the really important work that you do.
Yeah, and if I can just, Matt, say one more thing, just like from the perspective from what Hannah was saying too, as a creative arts therapist who's worked at multiple sites, and just really just dug into the community work. It's something I really appreciate, and that we want our cats to be able to know, maybe if it isn't necessarily the forte, how can we be a helpful tool? How can we be a resource? And Hannah having that kind of link, like she's saying, between is going to be really helpful to really make sure that all cats, regardless of where they are with their community experience, right, are able to meet with you and vice versa, and connect with you and vice versa. But I just wanted to say, as someone who's worked with multiple communities in the Creative Forces Network, it's just been such a beautiful experience. And I'm really grateful for all the work that I've been able to do with the communities. So thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Rebecca and Hannah. Thank you for introducing yourselves and really just making yourselves available to us here in this space. It's fantastic to have you here. Next, I would like to transition to the capacity team that you saw in Carolyn's chart earlier. The capacity team works on all sides of Creative Forces to tell the world about Creative Forces. And to tell us a little bit about that, I'll introduce here Lynn Osgood of the capacity team. Lynn, take it away.
Hey all. Thanks, Matt. Matt said it wonderfully. That's great. We sit in the middle between the teams, and we're here to help both the teams, both the clinical and community team, and you all, and to help understand sort of how we arrange, because we're called the capacity team, and just by intro, I'm Lynn Osgood. I'm the director of an organization called Civic Arts, and I'm the director of the capacity team, and we're really 3 teams in one. So our main goal is to make sure that both the Creative Forces team and you all have communications capacity, have the ability to get your story out on the web and through other media channels. And then also we help develop the infrastructure and support for the team. So you'll hear us talk about the National Resource Center, and that's what we refer to as the website. And you'll see a fresh new reboot of that coming in January. So we ourselves are composed of 3 different teams. Ourselves at Civic Arts, Flannel and Blade communication specialists, and Hyperact, who are web developers. And so we affectionately call ourselves Hypercivic Blade. And we will be coming to you regularly to talk to you about communications and how it is that you can get your story out there and really develop the tools for this effective and strategic storytelling. We know that you need not just to develop your program, but to really help others understand what this work is about and really grow the field. So with that, I will turn it over to our project partner Westlake from Flannel and Blade.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, I'm Westlake from Flannel and Blade, a very strangely named creative organization. And what we do is we do storytelling, and we start to think about kind of messaging of the Creative Forces program writ large as a kind of overarching narrative. And we really care about all of your narratives. So we're going to be in your business as much as possible, attending these meetings, coming to your in-person meeting as many of you as we possibly can, chatting with you as many as we can. We'll be crawling all over your social media, all over your websites, listening to, sort of doing social listening to kind of like get across everything that you all are doing so that we can better amplify that via the NEA and via all of your social media and web presences, and be kind of along for the ride with you. I'm sure you're all kind of stunned at all of this information coming at you at the moment. It will continue, but we'll also continue to get better and better. And we would love to be a resource for you as we go forward. And we're always around, and we want to get to know you all. We're also producing case studies of many of the programs that you all are running. So over the coming years, we'll be looking to do more case studies and more kind of in-depth research about the type of work you all do and the impact that it has in the communities and for the program writ large. And with that, I'll hand over to my colleague, Julia Zeltzer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Wesley. So yes, my name is Julia Zeltzer. My pronouns she, her, hers. I am connecting to you from Brooklyn, New York, and I run a company called Hyperact. I'm the part of the creative crew here. And Hyperact is a purpose-driven agency that concentrates in developing brands and digital platforms. And for the past 2 decades, we've been working exclusively in the nonprofit space. So we are in the know of what the pressure points are in your organizations and generally. We know what you typically struggle with. And it is, you know, we do this work because we absolutely love it and we don't see any other way of operating. So this is very much in the Creative Forces project is very much in line with how we want to live and experience our work. When Bill said that he had 2 favorite days when he was reading grants and just projects you're working on, my favorite days of this journey, and we, you know, this is our first year in this as a capacity team, was meeting the cohort of last year, and I'm very much excited to meet you all in January of 2024. So what is my role and what is my team's role in this project is that we are overseeing the website, we're overseeing the brand and the visual presence. And we know that pictures, visual aspect can speak 1,000 words, right? So we're looking for, we're figuring out how to make sure that your team shows up, or we receive the information that speaks in imagery that speaks 1,000 words. We want to make sure that you have the tools that make your lives easier. And we know that operating in a business, you really want to be able to have all the necessary tools to make sure that you turn your story around. How do you tease it out? How do you package it? How do you stay consistent with all of this? Are the things that we worry about and think about. And we're thinking about structures that could help you to take this information and apply in ways that go beyond the Creative Forces. So that's my role in the project. As Lynn mentioned, we are overhauling the site. Current site is very big and robust, and we're building. And as Carolyn mentioned, there's so much research available to you, and so many resources available. We're excited for the launch of the new site that will present it in ways that you will be very, very accessible to your team. Thank you. Back to Matt.
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn, Westlake, and Julia. Really appreciate you taking the time to explain yourselves and the work and introduce all of the wonderful things that you do and what we plan to do over the next year. Okay, we're in the home stretch here, everyone. You've been very patient letting us talk at you for the last 43 minutes, and I really appreciate that. The last group to talk about today is Mid-America Arts Alliance, the community side. I wish I could introduce my supervisor, Christine Bayal, but she had to step away for a moment this afternoon. But I'll just mention a few words about Mid-America Arts Alliance, and that we are one of 6 regional arts organizations in the country. Our region that we generally serve in Mid-America Arts Alliance is Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas. So if you work in those states, you might be a little bit more familiar with Mid-America Arts Alliance than others. But the regional arts organizations do commonly do some national grant-making programs, and Creative Forces is the program that Mid-America Arts Alliance does in cooperation with the National Endowment for the Arts. So again, my name is Matt Elmore. I'm the grant programs coordinator here, and I'm the go-to guy if you ever have any questions about the grant program, about reporting, or about who to talk to, or we'd like to talk to a subject matter expert on XYZ. Is that something that we could probably put together for an all hands? Bring those ideas. We're here to listen. I'm here to listen, and I'm trying to do my best to make these sessions relevant to you. So the more feedback you can provide to me of what's useful to you, the happier the easier it will be for us to have relevant conversations. We do have some subject matter experts contracted within the community team here, and I'd like to introduce one of them, who is Art DeGroat, who is our Senior Military and Veterans Affairs Advisor. Art, would you like to take a moment and introduce yourself, your work, and what you're excited to talk about this year?
Sure, Matt. Thanks very much. And first and foremost, I want to congratulate everyone for receiving these grants and doing this great work and joining the Creative Forces team. My name is Art DeGroat. I'm I had a 23-year Army career as an officer at 2 tours of combat. I've served for the last 18 years as the Director of Military and Veterans Affairs at Kansas State University, very involved in university-based military affairs. I received my doctorate in adult development in 2016, focused on studying the post-9/11 era veterans as they transition to the workplace and to civilian life. And through that work, I got very interested in, and was working at the national level and trying to tune up veterans assistance programs. And I became very deeply aware the limitations of informational tools to help veterans transition. And I started getting exposed to the arts and how artists and arts programs were in communities and in clinical settings were having this amazing impact on restoring the strengths of very strong people who have been weakened by combat or by military service or the trauma of transitioning back to civilian life. And so for the last 11 years, it has been my most passionate source of service in working across the country with community-based veterans arts programs of all forms, mostly in performing arts. I've worked with 29 programs prior to coming to Creative Forces, mostly in the performing arts, but pretty much covered everything from comedy to spoken word, graphic arts. So I have a lot of kind of on the street, I have a lot of street cred in working and understanding what it's like in a small arts organization that has taken on a bold challenge to work with our nation's veterans and military connected people. I also serve as a executive producer of one of the longer serving movement arts company called Diabolo, and they're out in Los Angeles, and they are a current grantee. And so I've got a lot of experience working with that all over the country. Because of my work, I get to serve as an expert witness to the U.S. Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. And I get to testify every year or 18 months or so. And I always put a strong advocacy statements in about the work that you're doing. It is very important. National leaders are watching what is happening, and this program through Creative Forces has really helped all of us tie our work together and make it a more powerful enterprise. So I commend you again for that. One last thing I guess I would say is I just finished a 3-year study with some colleagues and in a community-based arts program where we did some measurements, research measurements on the psychological and social impacts of on post 9/11 era veterans as they undergo performing arts workshops. And I just sent Matt and some other folks on the team a copy of that. We just submitted it to the Journal of Veteran Studies and hoping that they do peer review, and it's more valuable of a study if they review it and publish it than if we just share it. But I'm willing to share it if Matt thinks it's an appropriate resource for folks to get an idea. It doesn't mean your program has to have any kind of scientific component to it, but with my work, I'm trying to help you, and by advancing the knowledge that what you're doing is extremely significant and impactful on the lives of military veterans and such. So we're saying that my services to you are, I typed in my email address like Carolyn did in the chat, and if you have any questions, I guess my utility would be in if someone wants to help develop their approach to how to serve their veterans through their arts work, recruiting participants. It seems to be a perennial challenge how you approach that. A lot of arts organizations have not partnered with veteran service organizations or military service organizations in their communities in the past. So helping you work and navigate, negotiate some of those relationships. I'm very good at that. And then just working with military and veterans from a cultural perspective. What I do know is that I respect your creative process. I respect how you are arts educators. And so I stay and have full respect for the artistic process and the methods you use. I just try to blend in and help you with a different cohort that you may have not been familiar with working with, if it's your first time working with the military and veterans community, and help you bridge that cultural gap between the arts community and the veterans community. And once you get across that bridge, which is a very easy bridge to get across, that the relationships between artists and veterans, I've never witnessed a stronger bond. It's equal to the bond of soldier to soldier, Marine to Marine. It's a beautiful connection between artist and arts educator and the veterans. So again, thank you for what you're doing, and I'm at your service. Just send me an email, and I'd be more than happy to help you. Thank you, and thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much, Art. Okay. The last few people I'd like to introduce you to, you might consider making your best friends because they can be very, very helpful to you, I think. And that is our technical assistance contractor, Veritas Management Group. And so I'd like to introduce Debbie Holden and Uduak Basi to introduce themselves and some of the resources that are available to you as grantees through their services. Debbie, handing it over to you.
Hi, Matt. Hello, everyone. I think Uduak had to hang up, so it's just me this time, but you'll get to know her as well. I'm Debbie Holden. I am Director of Research and Evaluation at Veritas Management Group. We're a small minority-owned business and have been working with Creative Forces for a little over a year now. Congratulations. We've been excited to see who's on the list and who we're going to get to work with this time. So it's a very exciting group. And we are working primarily with Matt to provide you both with TA and with evaluation support. And that means that we'll be working with you over the next few months in particular to get information from you about what kind of technical assistance you would benefit from. Like Art was saying, if you've never worked with the military before, could we connect you with some resources for that, or connect you with Art in particular? If you need help with understanding how to collect data, since it is part of the requirements, we train about that and provide a lot of materials for that. And also I know last year we taught people how to build logic models, for example, for your program, so that it's something that's helping you to build sustainability for what you're doing. The other thing that we do is provide evaluation support, so that anything that you're doing to evaluate your program, we can certainly support that. I'm a community psychologist myself, and we're a research team, so we can come in and help you do whatever you need to do to complete those kinds of tasks. And the first thing you'll hear from us is within a week or so, we're going to be sending you a survey of a needs assessment, basically to ask you some questions about areas that you would really like some help in, and how best to deliver that help to you. So I look forward to getting to know you, and I'm very excited to get to work with you. And I'll just stop there.
Great. Thank you so much, Debbie. And that concludes our talking at you for today. Thank you for being patient with us. So we've given you a lot of general information. I was wondering if anybody has any general questions that they'd like to ask of anybody in the group here. If you don't, that's totally fine. We can give it back 5 minutes of your day, but I'd just like to open the floor.
I have one question, please. When we were talking about the 4 focus outcomes or aims, it said that the first one was improved social connection, and then it went on to resilience and creative expression, but I missed number 2.
Who has the outcomes memorized yet?
I do. So which ones?
Thank you, Bill.
So I'm not sure I captured the 3, but it's improve social connection, improve resilience, successful life transitioning,
And creative expression.
and creative expression. And by the way, there's if you dig into the successful life transition, it gets at something else that we thought was really important to include, which is how these activities can help you feel connected to larger, mission, connect to a mission and purpose, including a feeling connection to something bigger than yourself, which is a really important kind of value of military life that can be, unpacked here as well.
Right. And I see a question in the chat from Eric. How can I get in contact with Help for a Logic Model? If you go to this Creative Forces grantee website on the MA website, on there's a request form where you can be put in touch with Debbie at Veritas Management Group, and they will schedule a meeting with you, and you can have a one-on-one consultation about your logic model and start thinking about how that works moving forward. Does that work? Does that make sense for you, Debbie?
Absolutely. That's one of the main things that we work on with you.
Great.
All right, well, one thing that I'd mentioned this earlier, but I do want to make sure that as we conclude this first, this was an introductory meeting where there was a lot of, prefacing of how you can understand who your support teams are, where they can be found, what their roles are. And that required us to doing a lot of talking at you. But I want to sort of commit and guarantee that in subsequent conversations, we will always be building in time for you to hear from each other. Typically, we'll tend to highlight a few projects that kind of can help us illuminate some themes, and then let that spur conversations about how that relates to the work that you guys are doing in your own individual projects. But there's very high on our list of concerns and aims here is to create sort of a network of support and connection. And I think that we've learned, we knew that going into it, and then we overprogrammed some of these conversations, I think, and I'm the one that I'm pointing the finger at the most there. And we really do want to make sure that we're giving time for us to be learning from each other and from you. We do want to hit some of these themes that we know that are recurring and are important: military cultural competency. It's more important for some than others. Some of you can be teaching us a few things about your experiences in those areas. This whole area of clinic and community and how the arts-based responses in those two different areas can be understood is something that I think we're going to need to continue to work on in a positive way, because there's a lot to learn from Rebecca and her colleagues on the clinical side. There's a lot for us to be learning about how the community environments actually are empowered in certain ways, in different ways than the clinical team can be, and that we can be, sharing knowledge over to that side of our, to that pillar of our initiative as well. But we talked at you a lot today. I think that's the bottom line, but we really do want to be trying to create an ongoing conversation, and we really get to know each other's work and get to know each other as individuals. And I think our work resonates with each other in ways that I know is going to be beneficial. So we just need to make sure we provide enough time for us to listen and to hear from you guys.
Thanks, Bill. All right, 3:59. So I'll say the next all hands meeting will be on August 24th at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be sending an invite with an agenda beforehand, but if you have a conversation you'd like to start, please go ahead and post it in the Slack channel and see what happens. Maybe you'll make a new friend and get some new ideas happening there. So we are here for you, and we're happy to be here. Congratulations on your grant. Stay cool and have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.